In a world that feels like it's constantly buzzing with chaos, there's this certain type of person who just seems unshaken by it all. They're like the eye of the storm. We all know someone like this, right? And it really makes you wonder. They're not naive, they're not weak. So what is going on there?
So let's actually get into this. I think the common assumption is that these people just don't feel things as intensely as the rest of us. But is that really true? Or is there something way more complex, way more intentional happening behind that calm exterior? That's the big question we're going to unpack here.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to break this all down, piece by piece. We'll start with the brain science, then look at how life experiences can actually shape this trait. We'll dig into the mindsets that support it, and we'll even explore the potential dark side before we ask the big question. Is this a skill that anyone can learn?
Okay, so first things first. Let's tackle the biggest myth right away, the idea that calm people are emotionless. The psychological reality? It's pretty much the exact opposite.
The real skill here isn't the absence of feeling, it's something called emotional regulation. Think of it as a 3-step process. When a big emotion like anger or anxiety hits, a calm person doesn't just react. They create this tiny little pause. In that pause, they notice the feeling, they understand it, and then they choose what to do about it. That little space, that pause, that's everything.
Let's think about it like this. Inside your brain, you've got an emotional alarm system, the amygdala. And man, it can trigger a fiery, knee-jerk response in a split second. But you've also got this rational CEO, the prefrontal cortex. Now, in people who are consistently calm, the communication line between these two is incredibly strong. So when that alarm goes off, the CEO steps in almost immediately, cools things down, and allows them to choose a reasoned response instead of just being hijacked by that initial emotional heat.
So how do you build that strong connection in the brain? Well, this is where things get a little counterintuitive. You'd probably assume calm people grew up in these really peaceful, stable homes, but very often that's not the case at all.
This quote, it just gets right to the heart of it. For some people, calmness was a survival strategy they had to develop as a kid. If you grew up in an emotionally chaotic or unpredictable home, learning to stay quiet, to observe, that wasn't a personality choice. It was a coping mechanism. Reacting emotionally could actually make a really bad situation even worse. So, you see, these lessons learned under intense pressure, they get baked in pretty deep. Staying calm was a way to get back some sense of control in a world where you had none. Holding back emotions was a way to de-escalate potential danger. And this strategy, which was so effective for surviving childhood, ends up looking like profound wisdom in adulthood. So, okay, beyond the brain wiring and past experiences, there's a very specific mindset at play, and it really revolves around 2 super powerful concepts: control and perspective. Psychologists have a term for this, an internal locus of control. Calm people have this fundamental belief that while they can't always control what happens to them, they can absolutely control how they respond. So they don't waste precious energy fighting reality. They focus all their attention on the one thing they actually can influence, their own actions. And just shifting from fighting the external world to managing your internal one, it massively reduces stress. Now, this focus on internal control is backed up by perspective. Calm people have this knack for seeing the bigger picture. They almost instinctively ask themselves, okay, is this really gonna matter in a year? How about a month? And that simple question shrinks the immediate emotional size of whatever problem they're facing. It creates this natural buffer against short-term panic. They do this by practicing something called cognitive reappraisal, which is really just a way of saying they actively reinterpret stressful situations to kind of strip them of their emotional power. So criticism isn't a personal attack. It's just information you can use or ignore. Failure isn't some final verdict on your worth. It's just feedback for the next try. They reframe these challenges from personal catastrophes into impersonal events. And all of this leads to another core principle. A calm demeanor isn't about not caring. Not at all. It's about being incredibly selective about what you care about. This table here, it's like a perfect map of their emotional budget. See? Calm people tend to have very clear boundaries and a really strong sense of their own values. They invest their limited emotional energy where it actually counts, on their goals, their relationships, their personal integrity. They just don't have the bandwidth for petty arguments or other people's drama. This isn't apathy, it's ruthless prioritization. But, it's not all positive. This trait is often really misunderstood, and it's so important that we acknowledge that calmness can have a potential dark side when it crosses a certain line.
Because they express their emotions so selectively, calm people often get mislabeled, right? They're seen as cold or distant or uninterested, especially by people who are maybe a bit more emotionally reactive. But in reality, they're often feeling things incredibly deeply. They just don't feel the need to broadcast it to the world.
Now, here's the crucial distinction we have to make. Sometimes what looks like calm is actually emotional suppression, the active denial of your own feelings, and that is not healthy. Over time, just pushing emotions down can lead to numbness or these sudden, intense outbursts when the dam finally breaks. It can even make it really hard to form close, intimate relationships. The difference really just boils down to this. Healthy regulation acknowledges the feeling. It says, okay, I feel anger. Now, what's the wise thing to do? Harmful suppression, on the other hand, tries to pretend the feeling doesn't even exist. One is mastery, the other is avoidance. And that difference, while it seems subtle, is everything.
So this brings us to our final and maybe most important question. Are people just born this way, or is this something that can actually be learned? While the overwhelming consensus in psychology is yes, calmness is a skill. It can be developed. And these are the proven tools. Mindfulness practices to create that critical pause, cognitive techniques to reframe your thoughts, developing emotional literacy so you actually know what you're feeling, and even controlled exposure to stress to build up your resilience over time. And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. Developing calmness isn't about magically fixing the world so that nothing bad ever happens again. It's about strengthening your own internal foundation so that you can handle the storms when they inevitably arrive. This quote just perfectly encapsulates everything we've been exploring. True calmness isn't empty or passive. It's a deep, centered kind of power. In a world that just seems to get louder and louder every day, being able to hold on to that quiet, internal strength, that might just be the ultimate superpower.